I'm just going to talk a little bit about the idea that there are many, many networks that are interested in the impact of research in society. And my hope is that we can find ways to do some better connecting among these networks and link and leverage the assets that all of these networks have and find ways to connect them and have a higher scale of impact through our research. So that's essentially what my title says. The first thing I want to do is just find out from all of you, in addition to NABI/ARIS, how many other networks would you say you're part of that are interested in the impact of research in society? 40. How many other networks? AAAS is one, right? So you're a member of at least one other network.
I think about 5. Yeah.
And about 5. Did anybody else, did they feel like you're a member of, say, 3 to 5 networks? Yeah. How much are those networks communicating with one another, do you think? Other than the fact that you go to their meetings.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's about it, right? But you probably see a lot of other people at multiple of these meetings, right? So in a way, those networks are very connected through the members and the people who attend the meetings or who participate. So I've actually been keeping a list, and I have a long list of networks that are interested at some level or in some way of the impact of research or higher education in society. And so I've been keeping this list, and you're only going to see a part of that list here. The list actually could have gone on for at least one more slide. But the idea is that I've been keeping this list, and I've been kind of recognizing that there are so many organizations that are interested in these things that we're all very much interested in, that we call broader impacts at this meeting, but other people might call other things. Essentially what they're talking about is an interest in how higher education and or research or science have an impact in society. So I'm really interested in figuring out how we take this list and we look for opportunities for these organizations to get connected better. And even more specifically, I'd like to find ways that these organizations and their assets can be better linked, because all of these organizations have a tremendous amount of content, knowledge, expertise, and so forth. All of them exist independently for a reason, right? So it's not like we need to smoosh all these organizations together, but if we can find ways to bring their assets together and link and leverage them, I think we'll be in a good place. Many of you are probably familiar with this model that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about it in the context of these many networks, but I think you might learn something, if you aren't familiar with this model, that you could use in your work in broader impacts as well, because this is all about partnership and collaboration. And what is broader impacts about? It's about partnership and collaboration. So this model, which I've seen called the collaboration continuum, I think the gentleman who originated it way back in the early 2000s, Arthur Himmelman, I don't believe he called it the collaboration continuum, but you can Google Arthur Himmelman and collaboration for a change, and you'll find all kinds of information about this model. This is heavily adapted, so you won't find that his version is exactly what you see here. But essentially, what this model talks about is how partnerships change and what collaboration looks like at different sort of levels of partnership, okay? So I'm going to talk about what those different levels of partnership are and what the differences are, and then we'll talk a little bit about how that plays a role in thinking about how to link and leverage across networks. So essentially, he starts at one level of a sharing information kind of partnership. This is what a friend of mine at a university calls a Barney Partnership for the US people in the room, and maybe, I don't know, some of the other folks from across the various ponds are also familiar with Barney the dinosaur, who says, I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. That's what a Barney Partnership is. Let's say that we like each other. And let's be public about the fact that we like each other, and we may even share some information between partners. At another level of partnership, we're actually adapting programs because of the interaction that we have with our partner. And at that level, we might be called coordinating. That might be called a coordinating level of partnership. At another level, we're exchanging resources. So we're getting a little bit deeper into our work together, and now we're cooperating. At another level, we're enhancing the capacity of each of our organizations because of the work that we're doing together. And at this stage, we might actually be called collaborating because there is much more than just transaction going on. We're actually really working together to think through and get to another level. And then finally, at this stage, we're sharing a vision. We're co-creating activities or initiatives or content in order to achieve this shared vision that the two organizations or multiple organizations or partners have. When Himmelman developed this, he said there are a few things that we need to keep in mind. First of all, one thing to keep in mind is that there's no judgment call here. There could be lots of very good reasons to just maintain sharing information or connecting type partnerships. Some organizations or people are going to want to work towards the sharing vision or co-creating kind of partnership. The idea is to be aware of what kind of partnership you want to have so that you can actually know what success looks like and you can move towards that success. Well, one thing you're going to need if you are going to move along this continuum is time, right? It's easy to start a Barney Partnership of the I love you, you love me, but it's going to take a little bit more time to get to a partnership that's about sharing vision. Another important T in this mix is trust. And of course, at one level, you don't need a huge amount of trust in order to just connect and share information. But as you move along this continuum, and if you're going to be mindful of having a real shared vision kind of partnership, you have to learn how to build the trust because trust has to become a much bigger part of it. Turf, on the other hand, is a really big part of the conversation when you're at this end of the spectrum. And again, that's okay, because at this end of the spectrum, we're just sharing information and we're saying we like each other. It's okay that we each have our own turf. But if we're going to move down the continuum and we're going to benefit from having a shared vision, then we really need to reduce the amount of turf worries that there are. Finally, I wanted to bring in these words, mutual benefit and reciprocity. A lot of people in the public engagement world use these phrases to talk about what is important about a partnership. That when we partner with our communities, it has to be in a mutually beneficial and reciprocal relationship. They're used interchangeably a lot. I think they're a little different. And I think that mutual benefit can happen at one end of this spectrum, but in order to really get to reciprocity, in order to get to a shared vision kind of partnership, you really have to have true reciprocity. So this is just a framework for thinking. I talked to you about that long list of organizations that I have. The last thing I want to just do is say, I want to talk more about this. I want to think more about how we can make better connections. I have one idea, which is to go to SC Johnson Foundation and say, we want to do a wing spread convening. I don't know if you all know what wing spread is, but it's this beautiful place in Wisconsin and Frank Lloyd Wright building, and they do these convenings and they have great conversations that often end in sort of declarations or other kinds of calls to action. I think there's an opportunity to think about what would a clearinghouse look like if we could better connect resources across these many networks. I think there's a lot of different things that could happen, but I'm not sure what the right direction would be, but I would really love to be part of something that is moving in this direction. So what I'm going to ask is when we get to the discussion part of this session,